Hello again, this is Foghorn with another installment of Flight School Academics for this, the 14th of November 2950 or 2020 if you're stuck in the past. This presentation is part of an ongoing series of academics for the members of the Aurora Republic, the premier role-playing organization in Star Citizen. If you are new to the Republic or visiting for the first time, let me start by saying welcome. We're glad to have you with us. We'd love to hear from you if you are interested in hearing more from us. We're a lawful good organization focused on role-play, exploration, and social interaction and are currently active in recruiting on Spectrum and Discord. A few org announcements before we get on with the academics tonight. Say welcome to our new member, Goldbug, who came and joined us from through the Crash Convoys corporation there, a member, a corporate member of the Aurora Republic. And as well, Inquisitor Drake, Victor Vile, and Sapper412, who not only joined us this week, but also already got rid of their immigrant tags by coming in and flying with us for at least once. And so welcome those new citizens. Everybody give them a pat on the back, say welcome, and make them feel at home. Okay. Last thing, org announcement-wise, of course, the Intergalactic Aerospace Expo 2950 starts this coming Friday, the 20th of November, and runs until the 2nd of December. There will be a new ship manufacturer offered each day. Their entire stock of spacecraft, flyable or in concept, will be available for purchase in some variant or shape or form. And then the next day will be a different manufacturer. However, the previous manufacturers will still be available from there on out. The last 3 days, I think, of the Intergalactic Aerospace Expo, everything is available. That is not one of the hull limited, large, capital, super expensive capital ships. Anyway, tonight we're going to talk about, we're going to go in part 2 of our sensors and scanning discussion from last week. This is the second and final part. We're going to talk, this should be very quick, and then we're going to go in and hopefully go play around with some Mercury Star Runners and go goof off with those things. So, scanning controls and displays, what we're going to hit this, the bigger scanning type gameplay when you hit tab there. So, come on, there you go. Anyway, so first off, the controls. Last week we talked about the display so you could know what you're looking at and know where things are oriented around you. Now we're going to talk about the controls if you want to find something else more than just our the passive sensor detects that you get if you actually want to go hunting for something. So the default controls, we'll talk mouse and keyboard. Obviously, if you're using something different than mouse and keyboard, you're going to have mapped these functions hopefully to something if you're using sticks or gamepads or anything like that. So we can only talk the default at this point, and I'll leave you to your imaginations, or you can always contact me and I can help you get those maps somewhere else. Tab is the key that you use to enter and exit scan mode. So if you're flying around with your normal flight HUD, when you hit tab, that will go away and it'll be replaced with the scanning HUD, which we'll look at pictures next after this slide. So, like I said, tab to get in and out of scanning mode. The rest of the controls are all done default on the mouse. So the right mouse button is what you hold to charge up a scanning pulse, and I'll show you the symbology for what that looks like when you're doing it here. I took a bunch of snapshots this earlier today. So yeah, you right mouse button and hold to charge the pulse up when you've charged it with as much energy as you wish, or if you get to 100%, then let go. When you let go with the right mouse button, that sends the pulse itself. If you use the middle mouse wheel, just wheel it, not push it. If you use the middle mouse wheel, you can change the actual scan angle. When you first hit tab and enter into scan mode, then the default's at a 360-degree sphere is how your active scanning pulse will go out. If you scroll forward one click, then that will take it from 360 down to a 180-degree hemisphere in front of the spacecraft. So basically, your 3-9 line, your wing line forward, but in 3 dimensions. And if you click forward again, then it takes that down to a plus minus 45 degrees of your nose. Click it forward again, it takes you down to a plus minus 30. Take it kind of down, takes it down to a plus minus 10. Take it down again, takes plus minus 5. And the last one takes you, the eighth. The eighth click forward will take you all the way down to a pencil beam, where your scanner pulse will be straight out the nose. We'll talk more to that in a minute. Left mouse button is used for a retical target scan, or what is also referred to as a deep scan. That is if once you find an object, if you want to find out, like if it's another spacecraft, if you want to figure out who and what is inside of it, more information on what its health is, of what damage has happened to it, all that sort of thing. You put it under the reticle. You got to make sure you're fairly close when it gives you the indications, which is something we call the 3 ants. When you see the 3 ants marching around the circle, that tells you you're within range to do the deep scan. You hold left mouse button to do that. Okay, so when you first hit tab and you kick in to scanning mode, this is the first thing you're going to see if you haven't touched the mouse wheel yet. And so the symbology, and I'm going to pull up my laser pointer here. Boink. Okay, so all this symbology right here, it replaces your HUD symbology, your flight symbology in your HUD. And the thing you need to pay attention to is this dashed line out here around the peripheral. When you first hit tab and come into the scanning mode without moving your mouse wheel, this is the symbol for, it's a 360-degree spherical pulse is where it's going to go. All right, so then if you hit mouse wheel forward 1, it will take you that, I'm going to flip back and forth between those two slides here, that outer dashed circle or dotted line circle will collapse to just outside this solid broken ring here. That dashed line now is, because it's outside of this solid line, and it's the solid line is gray, not white. That's telling you that the field of view is now the front 180 degrees. So left, 3-9 line, left and right, forward of your wing line, and it's showing outside this heavy line to tell you that the field of view that you're going to pulse scan through is still outside of the field of view of its max limits, is outside the field of view of the monitor. Just like, I'm going to go back one slide, just like the initial one is, that's 360, which means it's going to pulse and scan not only everything that's out in front of you, but everything that's around behind you where you don't see it in the monitor. That says the same thing, except for it's not going to be behind you. It's only going to be, like I said, your left and right wing tip forward of the spacecraft. The next time, the second click forward on the mouse wheel, you'll notice I'm going to flip between them again, so this is a little more obvious. Okay, you'll notice that it goes from outside this solid line circle to inside that solid line circle, and that solid line circle now turns white. That now tells you that the field of view that you are going to concentrate your scanning pulse in is now the actual field of view that is represented here with that circle, as will be all of the rest. So now when you let that scanning pulse go, you're only going to scan pulse things that are within this circle. So you can kind of aim with that circle. Okay, so the next click forward on the mouse button takes the circle down to there, further concentrating that scanning pulse. And the next one forward takes it down to there. Okay, you're only going to scan this portion of space directly out in front of you. The next click forward takes it down to there, as you can see, and the next one takes it down to there, and the last one takes it down to this tiniest pencil beam, that you can scan. So why would you want to collapse those down? As you collapse the field of regard that you're going to use the active scanning pulse, the longer range and more powerful a pulse will be within that area. To go 360 degree sphere, you can think of it this way, that you're spreading that energy out in all directions. Therefore, it's not going to scan as far and won't be as sensitive for a return. If you kind of know where something is that you're looking for, you can cinch that field of regard down all the way down to a pencil beam if you have a good idea that they're going to be right there, and all of that energy will go right down in that pencil beam right within that circular area, and that will get you the maximum distance, maximum sensitivity to get a return off of that field of regard. So next, we've actually, on this particular picture, we're back at all we did is hit tab and come into the scanning submode of our HUD and our system initially. So we're at the 360-degree spherical maximum width but least amount of concentration of power type field of regard. And so if you're going to send out a scanning pulse, you do that by holding down the right mouse button, and this the circular reticle out in front of your spacecraft with the gun cross will start charging up in a clockwise manner, pi slice. As you can see, this right here is at 43%. Obviously, if it goes all the way around, then that makes it to 100%, and you can't charge it any more than that. When you get to enough charge up that you think is good enough, then you let go of the right mouse button, and that will send the pulse. That pulse will look like, at first, it happens very quickly. It looks like blue, like a bunch of like little blue fireflies around the spacecraft, and it expands out in all directions within that field of regard, depending on how tightly down you set your scanner. And then once it gets that's all within like half a second as it goes out. The pulse goes out. Then as it gets away from you, then it kind of concentrates itself down into looking like this blue line of all those little or a flat plane line of all those little blue dots as that wave goes out. And then when it hits something out there that's within range and it gets enough of a return that whatever the selected field of regard's sensitivity can see, then it will show that return. So there's some pictures to let you see what happens. So what about those returns? What happens when you actually do find something in the scanner? So you're going to have kind of two generic categories of what kind of a return you get. You have a generalized return, which says, hey, I see something. It's generally over there. I got an okay location on it, but I can't quite tell what it is, and I don't have an exact spot yet. So what it does is the HUD will put up a 3D hologram wireframe box in your visor, basically. So if it happens to be out in front of the spacecraft, you'll see it in the HUD. But particularly if you do a 360 pulse, you need to actually be moving your head on a swivel, or using if you have track IR, this helps a lot in this case. If not, then that Z key for free look and free look left and right and up and down around the spacecraft to see if you're just generically looking for any old thing, to see where that if any wireframe boxes pop up. The duration for how long that wireframe box that the augmented reality shows you, its duration seems to be approximately the same as how long it takes that pulse to cool down. So I'm going to back up a little bit here. When you let go of that right mouse button to let the pulse go, then however far you charged it up, then that same circular charge up bar will start uncharging. That's the cool down period. And you won't be able to send another pulse charge. You won't even be able to start another charge for another pulse until that gets all the way back down to 0. This generalized return holographic wireframe box seems to endure about as long as it takes the pulse cooldown time to cool down. So the longer you build up that charge for the pulse with the right mouse button held down, the bigger, longer, more stronger pulse you get, and the longer that those wireframe boxes will hang around before they disappear. The other category, broad category, is the generalized. Here's actually a picture of a generalized return on a planet. So I just took the Avenger down to Hurston and just started flying around and pinging until I found something, just got any old return. So you can see I actually had to get pretty close to even see this return. This is a generalized return. I'm only 485 meters away from whatever that object is. So the ranges that you see prospectors and moles find things on the ground with their specialized scanners for finding minables and collectibles and harvestables Other ships can do that same thing, but you're not going to do it at anywhere near the range. And this here is a perfect example of that. The other broad category is a specific return. This is what happens when you have either you've ping scanned the object enough times that your sensors are able to start tracking it, actually can get an ID on what it is and get an exact coordinate as far as what it is. And that's where you see one of the symbols that you're kind of used to seeing. If it's a mineable rock, then you'll get the rock symbol. If it's one of those collectible, ground collectible type, like either hand mining or ROC rock mining, then you'll get that diamond gemstone shape. And then if it's like a spacecraft, then you'll get the either blue if it's friendly or neutral, or red if it's hostile behaving, sort of dash square corners with the heading cone showing you around that spacecraft once it gets that. All right, so you get in close. You want to know more. You want to know something more about that particular target, whether it's a spacecraft target or say a rock on the ground that you're thinking about mining or thinking about telling your friends who are miners if you're not. And that's that whole deep scanning thing. So how do we use it? First off, it's in the same scanning mode, so you're going to be tabbed in so that you're in scanning mode. And what you do is you bring in that center reticle over the target, and the way you know you're within range for being able to do the deep scan is you're going to get the 3 ants circling around the center, and I have a picture of it here in a sec. You can do that. You hold, once you have those 3 ants marching around, then you hold the left mouse button, and there's a bar across the top that will charge up. And as it charges up, then it will start showing you expanded information about that thing that you're doing the deep scan on. And it will be both in the context of what it is and additional information. And the longer that you can deep scan, the more and more information it'll give you until you get that timer bar at the top completely filled up. And then that's basically you've deep scanned all of the information that you can possibly deep scan. All right. So like I said, it's the same reticle, or it's the same HUD, scanning HUD layout as when you're going to do a ping. But as you can see, we had a specific return, aka these 2 gemstone symbols, icons that are saying that, hey, there's a ground collectible here. And then I had to drive in extremely close, 45 meters from them, before I started getting this. You see 3 little dashed lines, or 3 dots here. We call those the ants. Those 3 ants will start circling around this center reticle clockwise. That means you're in range to be able to do a deep scan. So now you left mouse button and hold, and this scanning progress bar starts filling up. Oh, by the way, EM emissions, IR emissions, cross-section, and resource count show up here when you start this left mouse button deep scan. As you can tell, that these gemstone rocks down here that are, I don't know if these are hand minables or if you need the ROC rock, but you can see that they're not putting out any EM, they're not putting out any IR. You wouldn't expect them to. They don't have, you can't get a cross-section signature, so you wouldn't be able to lock a cross-section missile to them, but they are worth whatever 250 is. 250 RS for resources. As this scan progress bar fills up, as you're holding the left mouse button, different bits of information will start popping in as the system figures them out. When it gets all the way to the end, like this, then all of the available information that your system can glean has gleaned everything that it can glean from that deep scan, and it'll all be posted. And there's no more reason for you to keep holding the left mouse button. It's giving you everything it can give you. Now you know everything that your system will be able to know. Now there is supposed to be, scanners are supposed to be a component here in the future, so you'll be able to put better scanners into your spacecraft. But that is basically how that works. So in this case, those 2 things are dolomine, still in the composition that 78.65% of the mass of those two rocks are 100%. Dolomine, and the mass is, what is that, 0.84 kilograms. Shows you instability, optimal power window, all of that mining stuff that I can't do in an Avenger anyway. I was just doing this to show you that it can be done. So what are the considerations we need to think about before we go sending a scanner pulse out there, and to know what the limitations of all this is? First, the advantage is that if sending a ping, you get a lot longer range detections than just with your normal automated system. You got to fly in pretty close to each other, relatively speaking, before your automated systems will start detecting and auto-categorizing each other. A ping, you can actually start getting contacts a lot farther away from that ping scan. First, if they're really distant or very hard to detect for whatever reason, then you'll get that generalized return, the wireframe box. If that is close enough that the ping is able to glean more information from them, then boom, it'll go right to a specific return, and it'll either start a track file, just like as if you had just locked the guy, or show you the rock icon or show you the gem icon, depending on what it is you're talking about. And that much farther out than what the automated system, if you weren't out there pinging away. The deep scan itself gives you additional improved information. The disadvantages, however, is that running around pinging all the time in scanning mode increases your emissions. So it means if you were trying to be stealthy for whatever reason, the second you ping, you're pretty much not stealthy anymore. Everybody just heard you or saw you. Therefore, you know, it increases the detection range on you by your adversaries. So your adversaries will see you farther away. The other thing is that the visual of it, at least right now, the visual of an active scan pulse going out is almost the same thing. It looks almost the same as an EMP burst. So a lot of, if there are new players around and stuff, or people who are not super familiar with what an EMP burst looks like, this will often get confused momentarily as being an EMP burst, and somebody may end up like taking a pot shot at you that otherwise wouldn't have if they had realized that you were just doing scanning. So that is a thing to kind of remember. It can look a little aggressive when you're out there going bing. Plus it highlights you, so if there's griefers around who like to go pop miners, then you know when you're banging away doing the scan pulses, you gotta that's your vulnerable period. Okay, so and some last closing notes. I just showed you mining scanning, which used to be only prospector and moles. Now pretty much everybody can do it. They don't do it as well as mining ships, but you can still find stuff and get in there and scan and see what it is. I don't know if that's the way they're intending it to stay. I got a sneaking suspicion probably not. But because there's a lot of ships that can be hauling a rock, ROC, rock, then they need some ability to be able to scan before they go pull out the rock to go bust up the rocks and do mining. So even the really super crappy scanners on the Avenger was able to go out and find a couple of Dolavine nuggets to be able to go pick up. The other thing is that all of this is all well and good, but it is still limited by, just like I talked about last time, still limited by the networking limitations, the object container streaming and all of that, that in one case where you should be able, with a active ping, be able to see a guy out there at like 20 kilometers or 30 kilometers, say, if the server has not, through its algorithm, has not decided to tell the client that that thing is out there yet, you can ping all day and you'll never see it until you guys get close enough that the server goes, okay, that other ship is now close enough to be a factor on the client server. Hey, client, there's a guy out here at this coordinate. Now you can ping and find him, and then fly away from each other, keep pinging and keep finding him out past your original contact range. Once the object or other ship or whatever it is has already been streamed in via OCS to your client. So you can keep sensor contacts on people a lot farther away from each other than you can do the initial, very, very, very first initial contact. And that is the same for active scanning as it is for just the passive detection that we talked about last time. Okay, that's it in a nutshell. I will tap dance for a couple of seconds, see if anybody has any questions to unmute. So we can answer them right now before we go into fly and go play with some MSRs. Okay, looking at the chat, I'm not seeing any questions there. I'm not hearing any, so I will wrap this up. Okay, so Thank you very much for listening to me. This wraps up this installment of Academics with Foghorn. I hope you found it interesting and helpful. If you have any questions I didn't answer, please feel free to contact me via email, Discord, Spectrum, or of course the comment sections below, and I will answer it to the best of my ability and as quickly as I can. Members or visitors alike, please hit those follows and subscribe buttons as appropriate. Leave us a comment. We actually read all the feedback. It does help us, as we're always striving to improve our contact for our members. You can find out more information at our bespoke website, aurorarepublic.space, or on Spectrum at robertspaceindustriescom/org/aurorarep. I will see you next time. This is Foghorn signing off, wishing you a very pleasant remainder of your morning, afternoon, and or evening.